Now, rail passengers face further travel disruption today as staff go on strike for a third time this week because of a dispute over pay and job security. Joining me now is the General Secretary of the RMT Union, Mick Lynch. Mr. Lynch, good morning to you. Thank you so much for talking to us. So where are we with these talks?
Well, we're constantly engaged with the companies. We've had sessions of discussions with them all week. We haven't made the advances that we'd like to make, but we will still keep engaging with them. They're putting their ideas to us. They are along the lines that we've been telling people, that they want to make very severe changes to our members' terms and conditions. They do want to cut thousands of jobs. They want to recontract virtually everyone that works on the railway on a set of terms and conditions and pay that is lower than we currently have. And that, in some ways, is a form of fire and rehire. They're saying we either have to adapt and adopt these new practices, or we will lose our jobs in greater numbers than we thought. So there is still that constant threat to us of mass job losses, thousands of jobs, new contracts of employment, new working practices which will be detrimental to our people, and we still haven't got any offer that's suitable on pay, and most of our people haven't had a pay rise for 2 or 3 years.
Because we've spoken to the Network Rail and they have said that we had talks again this morning, this was yesterday. We're really getting now into the nitty-gritty of the reforms we want to see and how much money that can unlock to convert into a better pay deal on the table. So we are making progress. It is inch by inch, though, rather than foot by foot. So do you agree with that? There is progress being made in these talks?
Well, we are getting down to what they actually want. They're giving us a lot of detail about what they want from what they might call the new modern railway. What we don't know is how our members are going to respond to that. We hear a lot of the changes they want to make, but our members, when they hear it, will find a lot of these changes very difficult to take on board. So we'll have to see what the complete package is, and then we'll have to go to our people and consult them in detail to see if they want to accept this package. So there's a long way to go yet, but most of the stuff that our members voted very heavily in favour for action about are what's on the table now, and they've not diluted very much the stuff that they want, and that's true of the train operators and Network Rail. And we have to make sure that we keep both of these things moving together. We don't want one section of the railway in advance of the other, and we are determined to get a settlement for all 43,000 people in this dispute.
So where we are today, this morning, do you think we're going to have more strikes?
Well, at the moment, we will have strikes because have not got an offer on the 3 elements of the deal. We've got job security, which means thousands of job cuts, and that's still on the table. We've got these working practices and conditions, which, as I've said, are very difficult to absorb, and we haven't got a pay deal. And we've now got another element on the mainline railway in the train operating companies about pension cuts and pension reforms. And we've also got that issue on London Underground. So it's likely, unless we get a lot of movement provided by the government, that the companies can change their stance, that there will be more action, yes. And we've got a funding crisis. At the bottom of this, all of these disputes are about a £2 billion cut on the mainline railway and a £2 billion cut on Transport for London. And that is what's difficult to swallow, because if you cut that amount of money out of the system, the workers are going to be worse off. And that's what the situation we're facing. And we've got to deal with that. And so it's a tough set of negotiations to go.
I'm so sorry. If talks are happening, and even if there is progress only inch by inch, and everyone's saying there is some progress being made, then why strike? Why disrupt the entire nation with this?
Well, we haven't named any strike action at the moment. This is the strike action we called to get the companies to the table. But what you've got to remember, what they're calling progress is them taking money off our members to a large extent. Any pay offer that they make to us, which is only in the region of 3% at the moment, and inflation is rampant in double figures at the moment, will be funded by job losses and changes to working practices, and to a large extent recontracting staff on lower wages. So it's not as if we're getting loads of money off these companies. They're actually offering lower money into the system and taking money out of the system rather than putting money into it. Usually when you go into pay talks, you're looking for new money to come on the table. And that's not the case at the moment, so it's going to be very difficult for us to get a settlement. And if they do what they said last week, that they're actually going to start making the redundancies, that will harden our position. And if they threaten our members' jobs, we will take more action.
Again, back to what Network Rail said, they said that they they need to have a modern railway. Modernising it and modernising maintenance means that the workforce will shrink, but that they believe they can make most of the changes without forcing anyone out of a job.
Well, they can make changes. For 12 years, Network Rail gave us a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies. They withdrew that last year in preparation for this dispute because they were getting ready for it. What we need them to do is commit to no compulsory redundancies, and then we can discuss with them this modern railway, which we are already doing, and the flexibilities they're looking for. But that can't completely disrupt our members' lives and their work-life balance. We want our members to be able to see their families and live in their communities. What they're offering at the moment is almost constant nights and constant weekend working at night. And that will change our members' lives, and they simply don't get rewarded at that level. They're not night workers. The pay and the salaries is very modest. And what they want in return for what they're giving in return for the changes they're proposing is not adequate. And I'm not convinced at the moment that our members will accept that. So we've got to be very cautious about what they call progress. They may be progress in their agenda, but it doesn't mean that our members are going to accept those changes just because the company wants them. So we've got to work that problem through with them. We'll do that as constructive, in a constructive dialogue, but there's still a long way to go on this dispute.
If you don't think your members are going to accept what they've got on the table, it sounds like you do think there are going to be more strikes throughout this summer. I mean, do you have days that you are looking to have more action? When do you think that would be?
No, we have not selected any days, but the whole point of a dialogue and a negotiation is that people change their position and you get to a new position that doesn't belong to either party so that you can form a constructive way forward. Now, at the moment, the companies are giving us all the reforms they want, but they're not listening fully to what we need and what our members need to get a decent working life on the railway. And that's got to change. They need to change their position in terms of what they're offering in terms of pay, what they can do for job security, and the way that they engage their staff and come to agreement with us about the way people work. So we'll work with them on that. We've not named dates. We're going to review where we are in the discussions next week, and then we will decide if we need to take more action.
So that decision will come next week on whether or not you're going to take more action?
Well, I haven't said that. What I said is we'll review where we are next week. We'll see where the discussions are going. We'll allow time for more discussions, and then we'll decide what we're going to do when we've consulted our members.
So no strikes until then?
Say that again?
No more strikes until then?
Well, we have to give 2 weeks' notice of strikes anyway. That's the legislation, so there won't be any strikes in the next couple of weeks. But we'll decide that. But we won't hesitate to use more industrial action if we can't reach an agreement, or if the companies carry through their threats to make people redundant. Network Rail issued a notice, a formal letter of redundancy last week. That's entirely unacceptable as a step to take in the middle of a negotiation. We won't take those threats lightly, so we need to get on with constructive dialogue, and that's the best way to avoid more industrial action, by reaching a settlement that suits both parties' needs.
OK. Mr. Lynch, thank you so much for your time this morning.